I work as a park ranger in a remote area. 3 years ago, we received a radio call. A hiker hadn't returned from a lightly traveled section of trail. I went out to look for him with another ranger, but the path narrowed and I ended up moving ahead alone. We didn't find anything during the first hour. No backpack, no clear tracks. The only thing I noticed was a strong smell, like a dirty animal mixed with something rancid, almost like old grease. A few minutes later, I heard movement to my right. I thought it was a moose or a bear. When I looked up, I saw it standing between the trees. I won't exaggerate, it wasn't some impossible creature. It was big, yes, but not disproportionate. The body looked strong and compact. In that light, it appeared dark brown, leaning reddish. It wasn't perfectly covered or uniform, it just looked like something that lives outdoors. It moved without making the kind of noise you expect from something that size. At that moment, I heard a scream farther ahead. I ran and found the hiker on the ground, trying to get up. His back was marked and his shirt was torn. He said something had shoved him hard from behind, and when he fell, it grabbed his shoulder and dragged him a few yards. I helped him to his feet, and that's when it appeared again. It stepped out from between the trees without running. It stopped about 15 meters away. It looked at us. It didn't make a sound. The smell was stronger there, clearly animal, but mixed with something sour I couldn't identify. The hiker started shaking. I raised my weapon, but I didn't fire. It wasn't attacking at that moment. It was just watching. Suddenly, it took 2 quick steps toward us, 2 steps that made it clear it could close the distance whenever it wanted. The hiker fell again, trying to back away. Then something happened that's still hard to explain. It didn't keep coming. It stood still for a few seconds, turned its torso, and walked back into the forest, as if it had decided that was enough. I got the man out of there, and we took him to the hospital. He had heavy bruising and a minor fracture in his collarbone. In the official report, I wrote, "Possible encounter with a brown bear." I never mentioned what I saw standing between the trees, because bears don't stand there watching like that, and they don't walk away when they have the advantage.
I was the one walking that day. I'm not a professional explorer or anything like that, just someone who enjoys long hikes in quiet, less crowded areas. I had checked the weather, carried basic gear, and knew the trail. It wasn't my first time there. The attack was fast. I felt a hard udar high on my back. I didn't hear footsteps coming up behind me, just the impact. I fell forward and rolled off the edge of the trail. I thought it was a bear defending its territory. I tried to cover my head. Something grabbed my shoulder and dragged me a few feet. It wasn't wild, uncontrolled swiping. When I managed to turn my body, I saw it in front of me. It didn't look like a typical animal. It was tall and solid, but what stood out most was the way it held itself upright without any strain. The hair was dark, not black, more of a deep brown with slightly lighter areas where the light hit it. I couldn't see skin underneath. It was covered, but not in a uniform or artificial way. It looked natural. The smell was strong, clearly animal, like unwashed hide, mixed with something sharper, almost like old meat. I tried to crawl away, but it pushed me again with its arm. It didn't claw my face or try to bite me. It pinned me down. Its hand was large and heavy on my chest. I felt the pressure and thought that was the end. It didn't scream or make strange noises. It was just breathing hard. What I remember clearly is its eyes. After a few seconds, which felt much longer, it lifted its hand. It stood fully upright and took a step back. I didn't move. I could barely breathe. It stayed there watching me. Then it turned and walked toward the trees. It simply left. I stayed on the ground for several minutes before I could get up. When I reached the ranger station, I struggled to explain what had happened. I ended up saying that a young bear had probably struck me and that I fought it off. The ranger who took my statement looked at me longer than necessary, but he didn't argue. At the hospital, they confirmed heavy bruising, a fractured collarbone, and deep marks on my chest and shoulder. I've seen bears before. I know how they attack. They tear, they bite, they chase. This was different. It wasn't hunting me. It was marking its territory.
I don't usually tell this, because every time I try, people end up saying it was probably a bear and that's it. I grew up camping. I know how a bear looks and how it moves. What happened to me out there wasn't that. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I just know what I saw and what it did to me. I had gone out alone to hike a long stretch that almost no one uses. I had enough water, my food was hung away from the tent like it should be, and the weather was steady. Nothing strange during the day. I walked at an easy pace and even recorded a bit on my phone because the area was open and quiet. At dusk, I set up my tent in a spot partly protected by trees, but with enough space around it to see if anything approached. I ate something simple and went to sleep early. I woke up suddenly because I heard something heavy walking nearby. The steps weren't fast, just slow and deliberate, like whoever it was choosing where to place each foot. I stayed still, thinking it was a bear looking for food. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Strong animal odor, like dirty fur mixed with something sour that reminded me of old meat. It wasn't the usual scent of damp soil or forest. It was sharper, more concentrated. I heard one of my backpacks being moved, not the food bag, that was hanging, but the one with clothes. I stepped out with my flashlight, assuming that once I shined the light, it would run off like most animals do. When the beam hit it, I saw it a few meters away, standing upright, holding the backpack in one hand as if it were examining it. It wasn't on all fours, and it didn't look startled by the light. It just lifted its head and looked at me. It was tall and broad. The hair looked dark brown under the beam, dull and uneven. Nothing exaggerated or distorted about it. What unsettled me was the fully upright posture and the way it used its hands, not like paws, but like actual hands. It dropped the backpack without rushing and took a step toward me. I stepped back and tripped over a rock. That changed something. It moved faster and shoved me with both hands in the chest. It wasn't a swipe or a bite attempt, it was a direct push that knocked the air out of me and sent me to the ground. I tried to turn and protect my head, but it grabbed my arm and held me down. The strength was steady and controlled. I could feel its fingers pressing through my jacket. It didn't scream or make strange noises. It was breathing heavily, and the smell was much stronger that close. Animal and rancid mixed together. I thought it would bite me at any second, but it didn't. It held me there for several long seconds, then eased the pressure. I stayed still because I didn't know if it would attack again. It stepped back far enough for me to see it fully in the light. It kept watching me without baring its teeth or making any clear gesture. Then it turned and walked into the darkness between the trees until it disappeared. I didn't chase it or try to record anything. I stayed on the ground trying to catch my breath. At dawn, I packed what I could without checking much and walked until I found signal to call for help. My arm hurt, and I didn't trust myself to hike out alone if something came back. At the hospital, they said severe bruising and a possible fracture in my forearm. When they asked what happened, I said a bear entered my camp and pushed me. No one questioned it much because that's the logical explanation in that area. I know how a bear looks when it comes into camp for food, and I know how it attacks when it feels threatened. What faced me that night didn't act like that. That's the part I never put on any form because I don't have a way to explain it without it sounding impossible. My brother and I traveled to Alaska in 2011 for work. We spent several weeks near a small town north of Anchorage, staying in a cabin that a friend had lent us. It wasn't a tourist area, more the kind of place where people mind their own business and just live their lives.
One Saturday, we decided to walk along a trail that followed a tree line near a wide, slow-moving river. There was no signal, no other cars parked nearby, just us. The weather was clear, and there were still patches of old snow on the ground, even though it wasn't the middle of winter anymore. After about an hour of walking, we both started to notice the woods felt different. It's hard to explain. It was just quieter than usual. No birds, almost no wind in the trees. We kept going anyway. At one point, my brother walked a few steps ahead while I stopped to adjust my backpack. When I looked up, I saw something between the trees at a distance. It wasn't fully hidden, but it wasn't out in the open either. It was a large, dark figure standing still. It didn't look like a bear. The posture was different. It was upright. It didn't move. It didn't make any noise. It was just there. I told my brother to look in the same direction. He stepped back toward me, and after a few seconds, he saw it too. We stood there without saying much, no shouting, nothing dramatic, just that feeling that we were being watched. It never approached us. It didn't try to scare us. After a short while, it turned and walked deeper into the trees. It wasn't fast or sudden. It just moved away and disappeared into the forest. We stayed there a moment longer, trying to make sense of what we had seen. We didn't find any clear tracks. The ground was hard with patches of old snow. We walked back to the cabin without talking much about it. I'm not someone who believes every story I hear. Before that day, I had never seriously considered something like that. But what we saw didn't match a bear or a person. And the strangest part was how calm everything felt. It wasn't like a movie scene. It was brief, quiet, and real.